On this episode of the Tuff Juice podcast, I had none other than my good friend Rex Chapman, Mr. Block of Charge himself. And we got into all things. We talked about his journey, playing for Kentucky, one of his favorite players growing up, the late great Wes Unseld Sr. And we also dove into some of his biggest moments in his professional career. The dunk contest, deep round going like this over the top. And we also dove deep into social issues and how he's been using his platform for good to find the silver lining. And the Bluegrass Foundation, giving back in a major way in the midst of COVID and all these things happening in the world. You do not want to miss this episode. Check out the Tuff Juice podcast on Apple, my YouTube channel, or wherever you get your pods. How you been?
Come on, anytime, anything for you. I'm good. I mean, I'm funky. To be honest, I'm funky right now. I mean, I can only imagine. Well, we'll get into it.
Yeah, I do want to get into it because clearly I want to talk about basketball and all these things, but I also want to talk about just the climate and visually. And you've been out there, speaking on everything. Yeah. I appreciate you for doing that.
I know, bro.
How you feeling?
All right. I'm trying to go around here speaking and stuff. It's hard though, man. It's just, it's the South. It's the South. And anyway, yeah. But I'm hanging shit. I'm white. What can be better right now?
That's crazy, man. People really stuck in their ways in spite of everything that you see visually feel?
I personally, I see, look, I found out that I have friends that voted for Trump, of course. For 4 years, I've had fun saying to them, so you voted for Trump. And they're like, yeah. I go, do you feel dumber? So I fuck with them like that. And, but what I found is that over the last, and it's a shame it's taken this long, but over the course of the pandemic, the people that were on the fence about him, the reasonable Republicans, I feel like they don't feel him. So I'm hopeful in that regard, but shit.
That was one of my next things I was going to ask you. For me,
right? Are we rolling?
We're kicking it. It's like the reason I was hopeful is because for the first time in my lifetime, and I know you're a little bit older than me, but not that much, that I've seen across 50 states, over 18 countries, everybody was engaged just on civil justice and all the isms in the world. Mm-hmm. And that's why I remain hopeful. But then I still see these visuals of black men getting shot down, black women getting shot down, people, still feeling a certain way about these issues. Mm-hmm. So are you still hopeful in that space, after you seeing all the things that still happen?
I am. I'm frightened. I'm frightened for, it seems like what's going on is, the main guy is stoking fear. That's what he's preaching. And that bothers me because it does feel like he's trying to incite violence. And that's troublesome. But you said it, I am a little older than you, but Karan, I've not seen anything like this. Not in my lifetime. I've been on Earth 52 years now. I remember just a very little bit about the Watts riots when I was little, like 4 or 5 years old. And then, of course, we went through, Rodney King and all that, OJ, all that stuff over the years. But it's never been like this. It's never been like this. And it's never, also, we've never had a president like this.
Yeah.
And not in my lifetime. And maybe people are trying to overcorrect for, we had Obama for 8 years. It amazes me, Karan. I hear it from people all the time. I say, well, I feel like there's a lot of racism going on. And they'll be like, well, Obama. I said, what about Obama? And they said, we elected a black president. I said, yeah, that doesn't mean racism is over. Just like if we'd have elected Hillary, sexism wouldn't have been over. I mean, it's like getting married. You don't get married and then you just stop working at your marriage. No, you get married and that's when it starts. And you got to continue to improve and learn and negotiate and be a good teammate. And if you can't do that, And the other thing that I'll say, and then I'll stop for a second, I've never understood for the life of me since I've been little, people that they don't, not caring about another person's plight because it doesn't directly impact yourself is a really shitty way to go through life, in my opinion. Right? I mean, it's a very hollow, in my opinion, a very hollow way to go through life. I mean, look, I hit the lottery, man. I was an athletic white guy, a white guy. I know what my privilege is. I've gotten so many chances, and I had so many chances as a kid that, you know, guys I grew up with in the projects didn't have. I mean, I was going home to meals every day. Some of my teammates, you know, growing up, who lived in the projects, they might have one meal that day. They might have only 2 rooms in the whole apartment, and there's 9 of them, and maybe, you know, no heat in the winter for a little while, no air in the summer for a little while. Also, you know, I remember how we used to get invited to camps. Remember, that was a big deal. Or at least my era was, you know, even if you got invited to 5-star, or it was called BC blue chip camp, some of those back in the day, that was a big deal. But also, you still had to pay. Most guys, if you're a freshman, sophomore, you still had to pay $150 or something. I got to do that. My boys didn't get to do that. And so right away, there's a separator there. And yeah, maybe I would have gone on and been better than those guys anyway. But at that time, when we're 14 or 15, my boy Avery Taylor, Marcus Robinson, David Hogg, they were just as good as I was. But then I went and I got some exposure. And now recruiters. Also, I was made to get my grades. And a lot of my buddies, you know, they were left to fend for themselves. And if nobody would have been pushing me to get my grades, I would have flunked out. I didn't care. I hate to admit that, but anyway.
I'm glad you're being, you know, just authentic and real about it, because I think that initially I penned an article in the Players Tribune that said,
I remember, it's beautiful. Beautiful.
It's a we thing. And the only way we can get to where we're trying to go is, you know, you coming from your background, I'm coming from my background and my perspective, and we're giving both our observation, and then we're coming to the realization that it is a problem. And I think that we can do that because when live sports and live entertainment was taken away, all the distractions that we would usually or traditionally get distracted by was taken away. So we had to really deal with the observation of what was really happening in our world and in our climate. So I think that's how we got here, you know, really COVID.
I do too.
Yeah, but you know, now that we're doing this, and now that you see guys, you know, like yourself, myself, LeBron James, so many other guys using their platform on social media, is filling their timelines with, you know, systemic issues and all that we need to do, and make sure you vote. Why is it so important for people to use their platform like that?
Man, you know, and this goes back to the whole peaceful protesting thing, man. You know, they jumped on Colin Kaepernick, and it wasn't political. He was peacefully protesting. And here's the other thing that just really gets me, Karan. And you know, we didn't play together. We're not even really in the same era. But the second that you and I worked together, it was like we played together. I love you, you love me. It's all good. It's like we played together because we know mutual people that have vouched for one another, right? What bothers me the most is I'm a white guy, and that's not what bothers me the most, but sometimes it does. What bothers me is how the hell am I, as a white guy, I'm going to tell black people how to peacefully protest. How does that look? Yeah, I'm going to tell you, okay, we want to kneel. You can get, no, you can't do it that way. You can't do it that way. Also, we don't want you to do it at the football game. Also, we don't want you to do it back. Well, if I just go home and do it, all right, who's watching? How does it? And people don't want to hear it. They're like, yeah, but it's messing with my sports and all that stuff. Well, come on, man. They play the national anthem, and you know that we've talked about it before. They play the national anthem at every game, at every one of our games. And for us, and it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I remember used to taking that time to think about my family and just, that I'm glad that they can, enjoy getting ready to watch me play. But they don't play the national anthem at concerts. See, why are we mixed? I mean, that's a whole other issue. When we make it about sport, when it's sports, come on. So there's a lot of, I think, issues that are there.
In the podcast Nice White Parents, reporter Hannah Jaffe-Walt, you may know her from This American Life, started looking into a school in her neighborhood after her kids became school age in New York City. Hannah examines this public middle school traditionally filled with Black and brown students. After a number of white families arrived, she investigated the school's history and finally realized what kept getting in the way of making the school better. White Parents. Nice White Parents is made by Serial Productions, a New York Times company, the same people who made Serial in S-Town. Launch CTA is now through 8/19. It's available everywhere, wherever you get your pods. Binge CTA 8/20 and beyond. All episodes are available wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got some issues. I am hopeful though, because I see I'm proud, and I hate to say this, but I'm proud of some other white guys right now. I'm proud of Steve Nash. I'm proud of Stan Van Gundy. Man. I'm proud of Pete Carroll. I'm proud of guys who are finally saying, I mean, look, and we've talked. Steve has felt this way for 30 years. I've felt this way for 30 years. Stan Van Gundy has felt this way for 30 years. But 30 years ago, we were in our teens and early 20s. And the voices and the powers that be, they weren't going to have that. Yeah. They're having to have it now. And I'm hopeful in that regard. I also hate that it's taken white people to step up, and because it's not about us. I mean, I guess it is. We better learn. We got to be taught. I'm hopeful that in a couple months, everybody's going to vote and we're going to start righting this ship.
Yeah, man. And you know what? I'm scared about that, the voting process. When I look at the ticket, right? And initially I'm like, I'm definitely going to vote.
Right.
No matter what. I always have. But a lot of people are looking at it as if, one, they vote don't count. And then two, they're voting for the lesser of the two evils. You get what I mean?
So, yeah, I do. And that part of that bothers me too. Here's the other thing, and this is not a popular thing to say, but it does bother me. And I like Joe. I like Joe Biden. I really like Kamala. It's just kind of striking to me that in this time of civil unrest like we have, with so much going on racially, that our only two options are two old white guys. It is, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm saying it as I'm smiling, but
with Miss Harris being on the ticket, that may help a little bit.
Oh, help! No, I'm all in. No, I think they couldn't have done a better job. I really do. She's brilliant. And look, I could have gone for Stacey Abrams. I could have gone for there's some sharp ones. You know what I want in 10 years? I want a ticket that looks like Killer Mike and Stacey Abrams, with Stacey Abrams running as president.
That'd be mean right there.
Mean, but I'm ready for that. I'm ready for.
So clearly, you don't like you're not voting for Kanye. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, Kanye's out, dude. And that's another thing, man. They're taking advantage of that man, I feel like. And anyway, that's a whole other issue. No, I'm not voting for Kanye.
I'm glad you said that. But, get back to, sports, and I want to talk about, your journey as well. But, what are you seeing and what are you happy about seeing with the partition of play, you know, back in Orlando. Like, all the players went back to the bubble. You see Black Lives Matter on the floor. You see the beyond symbolic trophy of the letter and the messages on the jerseys. And then the financial commitment to address the wealth gap with economic inclusion with, you know, Black folks and the Latinx community. Like, that's pretty dope, right? Our league taking that step forward.
Pretty dope. I mean, it's the ultimate. You know, the other thing you guys are doing, you're showing Michael and you're showing guys in my era, you know, that you can have a voice. And I know a lot of people got on Michael for years about not, you know, he's trying to sell shoes to Democrats and Republicans, all that stuff. Michael was the first guy to make enough money to where people thought he should speak out. And that's unfair. That's unfair.
Yeah.
I'm proud of that dude. You saw the whole, you know, Jordan, the doc and all that stuff. You saw him as a freshman at Carolina doing interviews. Remember that?
Yeah, man.
Scared, shy. He's had to negotiate all of this stuff on his own. And I think he's done a fantastic job. But back to it. Yes. The fact that the voting, the NBA, all of the owners have said, hey, come on, we're doing this. I think it's putting huge pressure. It is definitely putting huge pressure. I'm anxious to see what happens with baseball and football because I think more dominoes are going to fall. The dam is sort of broken, I think, for people. You know, I think football made a mistake a year or so ago or a few years ago by not standing up to the president. Apparently, they're not having it anymore. I hope. But I'm proud. I'm so proud of our league, Karan. And the other part of this, and you know how the NBA does things. They don't half-ass anything. It's going to be done right. I'm so proud of the guys for going there. And look, that's 2 months or a couple months anyway, away from your families, your friends, your relatives. And then on top of the fact that Black and brown people are affected by coronavirus disproportionately, it adds a whole other layer to this stuff because, you know, these guys are going to leave the bubble and then they're going to go back to, you know, their families and people are going to see their parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles. Where I really worry about this, though, Karan, is for college sports.
Yeah, man.
You telling me that, okay, the SEC, they're going to play their schedule and the football players who not really getting paid anyway, you're telling me after games on weekends and stuff, they're not going to see their parents and grandparents? This is dangerous, man. And unless they have a plan, my opinion is it can't do anything but blow up in their face. This is not a hoax. This is real, man. Yeah. I think I was thinking about the other day. I think I used to know a person to die once or twice a year. I think I've had 12 people I know die in the last 4 months. Right?
That's it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Just think about the COVID numbers whenever you turn on whatever news channel, whether you're Republican, a liberal, a Democrat, or independent, you know, that number is real. It's 180,000 plus.
It's 1,000 every day. 1,000 more every day. It's scary time, but yeah, I am really proud of the league. You know, also too, I'm proud of the way it looks. Yeah. Can you believe they pulled this off like this? I mean, you haven't been there, right? I haven't been there. I can only imagine it's weird for the players somewhat, but
visually it looks great.
Visually it looks great. You know, they've done a great job with the crowd noise, all of that stuff. I'm sure it's not something that the players are going to want to do forever. But I would think in a little bit, you remember how it used to be going to camp? It's got to be it's nothing but hoops. And it's got to be kind of fun to get to know a few of the other guys that you might not know or ever get to know or play with. I would think it's got to be kind of cool.
Yeah, man. It got to be cool. Safe, fun. Yeah. You get to continue to, you may earn a living in a safe environment and promote the messaging and move the needle on social change. I think, listen,
I'm with you.
It's perfect, I think, you know, from our standpoint.
I didn't realize until somebody told me the other day, and I can be wrong here. They said they felt like that the NBA was something like the biggest collection of wealth in the country, owners and players.
Definitely up there.
That's pretty powerful, man.
Yeah.
When I heard Trump say the other day something about, he called the NBA a political organization. What are they? A political? I don't know. You had Herschel Walker at your RNC, and you had Dana White from the UFC. Are they political, or is the UFC political organization now? I don't understand.
All I know is if we had "Make America Great Again" on the floor in Orlando, it'd be the best damn group of guys he ever seen. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God! Can you imagine? Holy shit!
Yeah.
So, all right, but back to "Make America Great Again." Can you? I try to ask this. Can you state for me what era, and be specific if you can? What era was America so great for Black people that they're talking about?
Shit, I mean, from an economic standpoint, what you want to go back to? Reaganomics?
I just want, yeah. Well, I mean, what are they trying to get back that was so great for Black people?
Yeah, but that was mass incarceration time. You know, so shit was great then. And that it was, kind of
crack
years and then
go back further.
Shit.
Yeah. So I've got a big problem with that hat. I do. I just do. I saw something the other day that said, not all Trump supporters are racist, but all of them have decided that racism isn't a deal breaker.
Yeah. And that's the problem.
That bothers me. Yeah, me too.
That's a huge problem. But, I want to pivot to basketball for a minute and talk about your beginning. We all had idolized certain players growing up. And clearly for me, growing up in Wisconsin, Racine, Wisconsin, Sidney Moncrief, I love with Jordan clearly. But who was your guy, growing up?
Yeah, my guy was Darrell Griffith. Dr. Duncanstein played at Louisville. And, they won the title in 1980, and I was I was probably middle school or late grade school. I loved Darrell Griffith. I loved Louisville. Also, I love me some David Thompson. And, that was one of my big thrills was when I got drafted by Charlotte. David had just quit playing, but, he blew his knee out. Yeah. But he was working in the Hornets community relations. I was the first pick of the team, and I had come into town, and I was working out in the summers, and once a week he would come down and play with me, and he would kick my ass, and then his knee the next day would swell up so big he couldn't play for another week. But man, he taught me so much those first couple years. One of the biggest thrills of my life. I never got to play against him in the league, but just and I did. I got to where I got better and better over a couple years, and just a huge thrill. But yeah, those two guys in particular, Darrell Griffith and David Thompson, and they're both 6'3", 6'4".
Somebody I got familiar with was Wes Unseld Sr., and I know he's
that's my guy.
Yeah, like this. Talk about.
Did you get to know Wes?
Yeah, I had a great relationship with Wes. We were together, man. We sat back. We had bourbon. We talked
Cavassier. He loved him some Cavassier.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Hey, man, we used to fly commercial, and at times when I was with the Bullets, and Wes was our coach, and if we ever got it back in the day, they had the barf bags, throw up bags back there, in the back of the on the plane, and you could also get from the flight attendants, you could get any kind of liquor. So if we wanted to get a day off, if we flew all day and we wanted to get a day off, every player on the team would take one of those vomit bags, ask the lady to fill it up with as much Cavassier as she could get, and we just hand it to him on the way off the bus. He'd say, "All right, see y'all tomorrow."
Hey, what's great dude? Back in the day, man, getting wet. What was y'all getting
wet? That's right. Just getting zooted.
I'm about to put that right here, man. I'll put that in the eyes. I got to pull that out one day.
That's right. Zooted.
Yeah, and you talked about, back in the day and that transition. And I want to go back to, when you was a first overall pick, a selection for a brand new franchise. Let's talk about that experience, what that was like for you, playing with the Hornets.
I'm glad you asked. I don't get to talk about it a whole lot, but it was really weird. I was the youngest. I was the youngest player in the draft. I was the youngest player in the league my first year.
Wow.
And Kareem was the oldest. I was 19 turning 20, and he was 40 turning 41. And my dad played against him way back in the day. How about that? But what was weird was I was still a minor. We couldn't have beer in the locker room, and you can imagine how that went over in an NBA locker room. I was made to go get beer from opponents' locker rooms after every game, put them in a garbage bag, take it on the bus to the vets.
That was your duty?
That was my duty, man. And I had to carry back in the day, I had to also carry the ultrasound machine. Looked like I was carrying walking in with a referee's bag. But but when I got drafted there, I went and I was moving in. I got an apartment and I was moving in, and I got out in front of my apartment. I pulled up, and there was a couple standing out there with a little baby, and it was Dell and Sonia, and Stefan was just born. And Dell had a broken wrist. We played the same position. He had a broken wrist. They helped me move my stuff in, and we've been the best of friends ever since. Sonia, but to tell you how just immature I was, I didn't know how to do laundry. My first road trip, she came over to wash some clothes for me. We got back off the road trip. We've been gone like 13 days. I had just gone out wherever we were on the road. I'd bought like 30 pair of underwear just because that's how immature, man. I didn't know how to wash clothes. I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know. They were basically raising Steph and raising me at the same time. But one story that stands out to me, man, and the thing was, I could play. After about a month in the league, I kind of figured things out, got the rhythm and the pace and all that stuff. But first month was kind of tough. But the first night, I held out for 1 week. My rookie year, I held out for $25,000 more. So I missed the first week of camp. Then I signed my deal, and I'm going to practice the next morning. 10 o'clock, my first NBA practice. Around 10, 11 at night, I was downstairs. I had an apartment. First time I've ever lived outside of a dorm or at my parents' house. And so I'm in this apartment. It's got 2 bedrooms. It feels huge to me, and I got nobody there. I turned the TV off, and I'm like, I better go get some sleep. First practice tomorrow. I got to be ready. And I turned the TV off. I went and turned the lights off. I go up the steps, and I looked up there, Karan. I'm 19. I looked up there, and it was really dark up there. Yeah. And I was scared of the dark, man. And I just turned around. I went back down, and I got on the couch, slept there with the TV on. I practiced the next day. And then that night, I was like, man, come on, dude. Just go up there, get it over with. So I got over my fear, went on up there, and it was good. But I just trying to say, you hope you're ready. I hoped I was ready. I came out after 2 years. We were going to go on probation. I probably could have stood to stay another year just for my maturity anyway. But playing in the league is hard, and I don't think people fully understand just all the pressure. And it's a great life, and it's a privilege. Don't get me wrong, but it's tough sledding when you come into that league, man, and then you're not quite physically, ready, or just. I couldn't even make shots. I hadn't had enough reps. You had plenty of reps at UConn. I had to learn how to make shots once I got in the NBA. I couldn't make an open. I could make them guarded, but I also didn't know how to. I had to learn how to shot fake. I had never learned how to shot fake when I got in the NBA. I was just jumping up over everybody and trying to shoot it, but I didn't know how to shot fake.
What about the skill component of it? Like, as you touching on, you was super athletic, but was it the skill component of the game where you had to really dive into?
It was mainly it was mainly, I think, just learning the offensive and defensive sets and the rules. I had a good feel where I could pass and I could handle. I could, you could put me in pick and rolls, and so it was just a matter, really. I got so much better from the beginning of the year to the end. My rookie year, it was pretty significant. And then, you just kind of hit a rhythm, and you hope to. I'm sure, like yourself, it's hell being a young player in this league sometimes, and they pick on the things that you can't do right away. And if you can it's like J.R. Smith, it's like Jamal Crawford, it's like Lou Will. Their first 4 or 5 years, mine too. Oh, he's a gunslinger. It takes terrible shots. And not guarding anybody. If you can get like 4 or 5 years in, they start only talking about the things you can do. So you got to stay with it so you can get to be a vet where you can have a longer career. It's not about going to the league. It's never been easier to go to the league. It's about staying in the league, having a career.
Specialist. They consider you a specialist then, right?
Right. A specialist. That's right.
Yeah. When did you, it's interesting you say all these things, like learning the game and working on your game and enhancing the game. But when did you feel like, all right, I'm Rex Chapman. Me as a basketball player, I have arrived.
I think I probably, if you'd have asked me when I was a younger player, I'd have said probably like my third, maybe fifth year. But in all honesty, and I had some good seasons, but I never made the playoffs until my 8th year. Never played in a playoff game. And the only time and that was because I got traded to Miami. And I played for Pat, and we talk about it a lot. I think I'd been a pro making money for 7 years, but I didn't become a professional until I got to Miami and learned how to work again, learned how to be coached again. And it really, that year, and I wanted to stay, and things kind of went sideways, but that set me up for the last 4 or 5 years of my career before my body broke down. And I think that was probably the years in Phoenix, those first, 2 or 3 in Phoenix was where I felt, the best. Like, for instance, where by that time, Clyde didn't want to play against me. I always didn't want to play against him because he was so much older and better, all that. But he was starting to decline, and I was right in my prime. And so you remember that, playing against guys that all of a sudden they come back 1 year and they go, damn, and you look at yourself like, damn, I'm getting old too, But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Yeah, you did, and I want to go back to, like, we talking about when I felt like you arrived as a basketball player, but also just as an all-star. I think it was one season that you was just balling, and I think a couple weeks prior to, the all-star selection, when they gave you a twist your ankle.
Yeah, man, that was heartbreaking because I didn't want to be in the dunk contests when they asked me to right out of college. Honest to goodness, I wanted to, but I didn't want to go and just be a dunker in the dunk contest. I wanted to be an all-star when I went to the all-star game. But they made me do it for a couple years. I did it and I had a blast. I was having a really good year in Washington. Also, full disclosure, the year Michael went to play baseball. there's a whole new spot open now. So, but I felt good. I had a good summer. I think I averaged 18 or 19 and shot the ball really well. It was around 50%. And the morning, it was Martin Luther King holiday. I'll never forget. We were playing at home against the Spurs at a noon game. We were having a blizzard at home, and on the West Coast had a big earthquake. And I went to the hole. I was going to dunk it. I left too far out. I just kind of laid it in. I came right down on Dennis's foot, and I dislocated my ankle. It came out of the skin, all of that. But that morning, Abe Poland had called me and said, Rex, you're going to make the All-Star team. I just want you to know you'd be our first one since Jeff Malone. And, man, I was so excited. They took me off the court. I had to go to the hospital. They had to put, manipulate it back in, knock me out. I woke up in my bed at home with a cast on my leg, still in my uniform. And ESPN was on showing where I'd been replaced in the All-Star game.
Like that. Damn.
Oh, I mean, I thought, whoa, it's just brutal. But yeah, it just wasn't meant to be, man.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you what was meant to be though. When you talk about your resume sheet, and one of the first things people will look up, clearly one of the best dudes ever to do it, man. I love you as a human being, but the '96 Bulls, the '72 and 10 team,
yeah.
Somebody put up 39 on him on MJ when he was in his prime, man.
Yeah. Only about 12 of them were on him, though. Let's be honest.
Hey, this score on him.
No, you know what's funny about that is that there's a couple funny stories that go along with it. One is I always say, look, they were unreal, and we weren't in their league. They waxed us in 3 straight in the playoffs. But they came into South Beach playing. Oh, we only had 8 guys available. We'd made a trade, and I think Tim Hardaway was coming, but we didn't have Timmy yet. So there was only me and Alonzo, Keith Askins, Tony Smith. They weren't taking us very seriously. They came out and went up on South Beach all night, and I know that because I was there. And but my son, Zeke, who he's 27 now, he was like 3 at the time, and he loved Michael. He loved the Bulls, and he normally would go to the games. He didn't go to the game that night, though. And we ended up beating them. I got 39. We beat the Bulls. I came home. I go inside. I go upstairs to my son's room, to Zeke's room, and he wakes up. Daddy still got his Bulls stuff on, wearing his Michael stuff. And we go downstairs. He get on the couch. He finally kind of wakes up and remembers we had a game. He goes, "You played the Bulls. Did you win?" I said, "Yep." He took off crying and ran back upstairs. I couldn't believe we beat Michael. He was mad.
Michael was different back then, man. I'm telling you.
Hey, he was different. But the great thing about that is, and he and I, David Falk was my agent, David's agent, Michael's agent forever. So we've known each other. We used to play golf together, bowl together, just good friends. And I got to know Michael's family, his dad, mom, and Charlotte, because they were at all of our games all the time, his brother and sister. And we played against each other already for 7 or 8 years by this point. And that was either maybe the first or second time, I think only the second time in like 8 years that I'd played on a team that beat the Bulls, And we played them at home 2 weeks later. This is before the playoffs. This is near the end of the season. We played them at home after we beat them, and I went off in that game. 2 weeks later, we're at the jump circle, and dapping everybody up, and we're standing there. He and I are right beside one another. The ball goes in the air.